All right. So when we left off, we were talking about dissociative disorders. Now we're going to kind of talk about I don't want to say the ultimate in dissociation, but kind of a big part of dissociation, which is an entire grouping of mental disorders called schizophrenia. Now, for a very long time, schizophrenia was kind of used as a catch-all phrase for any and all kind of mental disorder. They were just kind of, you're diagnosed as schizophrenic. If you had any kind of um, distorted thinking, you were classified as schizophrenic. Um, Over time, we have removed more and more things out of it and re-diagnosed people as having a number of different disorders. So just understand that this is kind of what's left. And a lot of it is we've got literally no idea what's going on. We don't know why this is happening. We don't know why it's happening, why or who it's happening to. We really are lost. Okay, so the painting that is done here is a copy of a painting that was done by a young schizophrenic, created during the early stages of her illness, or of his illness, I should say. It depicts a partially faceless woman all alone, reflecting a sense of distance and separation. Schizophrenia encompasses a variety of disorders and has no single cause. Schizophrenics often experience distortions of their thinking, cognition, and perception. They also suffer from emotional disturbances and can lose some motor control. If a person remains afflicted with schizophrenia for a long time, it can often cause brain damage. Okay? So, schizophrenia on its own, by itself, is a distortion or a disturbance of thought patterns. We as human beings have kind of typical thought patterns and we think along the same ways, but schizophrenia disrupts that and it makes us make connections where there should not be connections. A few years ago, actually many years ago now, I had a student who had a brother who was schizophrenic, and basically what he said was his brother would uh, how do I put this? His brother just basically one day suddenly changed, and he would disappear for months at a time. And when he came back, he looked like he hadn't showered or sometimes eaten in quite a long time because his distorted thought processes basically just he would leave the house and come back whenever he really felt like it. It affects everybody a little bit differently, and on average, about 1 in 100 people will develop signs of schizophrenia at some point in their life. However, if you are a person who has that run in their family, the odds go up to 1 in 10. Okay? Again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get it. It's not 100%. It could possibly happen. So just be aware of that. Most schizophrenics have confused, disordered thoughts that end up affecting their speech. Some theorists believe that schizophrenia results from abnormal brain structure, theorizing that a schizophrenic neural connections are in disarray and can't line up in normal ways, especially in the hippocampus. Schizophrenics also have a problem with comprehension. When they think and they try to communicate, a kind of punning effect takes place. For example, if someone were to tell you they were having pain in their chest, you might assume that they're having a heart attack. However, the word chest has other meanings, and a schizophrenic might not think of a human chest, but of a sunken treasure chest, which would then bring to mind things of pirates, and then therefore their response to a person saying they have chest pains might have something to do with pirates and pirate-themed material. Not surprising, it can make it very difficult to understand what a schizophrenic is really trying to say. So again, confused, disordered thoughts are kind of the norm of schizophrenics. Um, they can be quite terrifying, schizophrenics, but they're usually, and take usually with a big grain of salt, usually they are not violent. unless you are trying to disrupt their what's going on inside their head. That's when they start lashing out, typically. Many schizophrenics live far off in a dreamy reality, imaginary world with delusions, disembodied voices, vivid hallucinations. Schizophrenics, schizophrenia has no single cause, nor does a cure exist. Although psychotropic drugs do seem to help schizophrenic block out some of the voices and some of the hallucinations that they experience. Usually, as long as patients stay on their meds, their conditions improve. As a whole, schizophrenia divides itself along the rule of thirds. One third will get better, one third will stay the same, and one third will get worse. So, not really great odds when it comes to treating schizophrenia, but we do the best that we can. Schizophrenia seems to arise most often in late adolescence or early adulthood. Most psychologists believe that schizophrenia is a collection of symptoms rather than a single disease. I told you. Yeah, I know. Let's get you some more. He doesn't know what he wants. Yeah, almost. All right. Most psychologists believe that schizophrenia is a collection of symptoms rather than a single disease. This painting here shows a series of paintings done by an adolescent boy diagnosed as schizophrenic. They are pictures of his family members. His occupational therapist had encouraged him to draw, and it provided some relief for him from his symptoms. But as you can see, those are very distorted pictures of who his family members are. They're very artistic and they're very well drawn, but they are extremely distorted. So you can kind of see some of the distortions that are going on inside his mind. We're going to see a couple of pictures that were drawn by a schizophrenic patient. The next 4 slides show some self-portraits made by a schizophrenic named Joanne. She was a talented adolescent with a flair for art. Joanne was also extremely delusional, often claiming that she was Shakespeare's Richard II. She told her occupational therapist that her self-portraits depicted her true colors, ones that she said lay beneath her skin. She always said that she felt on the urge of being out of control. In this first painting that she made before she was hospitalized, she depicts herself as wide-eyed and full of fear. You'll also notice that she's purple. Okay, that's part of the color beneath the skin. She believed that she was, in fact, purple, even though you couldn't see it. In this painting that Joanne made shortly after she entered the hospital and began art therapy, she felt deeply dejected, and the painting shows her inner turmoil. You can also see that she's lost some weight. Again, schizophrenics typically have, I don't want to say a lack of being able to take care of themselves, but they just, it's not something that they think about. So they tend to fall into another place. In her third painting, she appears to be more normal in her proportions, but you can still see that she has fear and sadness in her expression. Okay, she's still not doing great. And in her final self-portrait, she has normal proportions and regular skin tones once again, and she seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Okay. Yeah, well, again, that's the color. The orange was the color beneath her skin and beneath her hair color. Don't ask me. She's good. Schizophrenics often suffer delusions about their physical environment and their relationships with other people. In many cases, paranoia accompanies the delusions, and schizophrenics can become convinced that some shadowy conspiracy has targeted them. People with schizophrenia also sometimes have auditory hallucinations in which they can hear voices when no one else is present. Some schizophrenics become incoherent or display a marked decline in thought. Their speech appears to consist of gibberish and unrelated words, thrown together. Schizophrenics have also been known to show inappropriate affect or emotion. Their emotions can also seem sluggish or delayed. Their body language and movements begin to change, and they often suffer from diverted attention or cognitive flooding that erodes their ability to focus. Okay. Many times, the first sign of schizophrenia is a sharp drop off in production at work or school. This slide is a series of paintings that were done by an artist who was schizophrenic. You can see in the top left corner, this is at the beginning of one of his schizophrenic episodes. And then you can see it's a painting of his cat, but the paintings become more and more distorted as the schizophrenic episode continues. Okay, so again, top left corner at the very beginning, then kind of at the middle part of the beginning, then in the middle, and then at the end. And you can see that the paintings are extremely frightening, especially that bottom right hand corner. That is terrifying. So you can see that this person who is suffering from schizophrenia is going through some stuff. Okay, he is definitely going through some stuff. Okay, there are a couple of different types of schizophrenia out there. We've got paranoid, catatonic, and disorganized schizophrenia. We're going to talk about each one of these individually. Probably the most common form of schizophrenia is paranoid schizophrenia. This consists of complex delusions. So your brain basically invents its own reality and then puts you into it and then tells you that the world that it just created is out to get you. If you've never seen the movie A Beautiful Mind starring Russell Crowe, I'd recommend it. It is based on a true story of I think he was a mathematician who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. The first half of the movie, you don't know that he is having delusions. And then at one point in the movie, when he starts getting some help, you start realizing what's real and what's not. And it can really kind of mess with your head as you're going, wait, that guy wasn't real? Nope. Oh, wow. Holy crap. Never mind then. Okay, so you have these perceived persecutions, hallucinations of smell, taste, sight, hearing, all kinds of different hallucinations are going through your mind. There are unseen voices that are giving you commands. Another, I don't want to say famous case of schizophrenia, but another example of it would be the Son of Sam killer. This was a serial killer in New York City in the mid to late 1970s. He believed that his neighbor's dog was giving him commands because the neighbor's dog was Satan, and he had to kill people as commanded by Satan because reasons. Okay, he was having these delusions. They also oftentimes believe that they are on some kind of special mission, a mission that they have to solve and they have to fix, but there isn't anything there. They also have these delusions of grandeur. Well, there's a good point. Believing that they have that mission to fulfill, and then those auditory hallucinations sometimes reinforce that belief. Okay. The next form of schizophrenia, catatonic schizophrenia, is one where you move from lots and lots of action to turning off completely. Basically, it would be like you become a wax figure, in your real life. You just kind of stop moving and become a statue. They can hold their limbs in unusual positions for a substantial amount of time. If you remember, awakenings from the beginning of the school year, most of those people were diagnosed as catatonic schizophrenics or atypical catatonic schizophrenia. That's because they showed the symptoms of that, but they couldn't explain it past that. They had no idea. Yeah, you ain't getting any. The next form of schizophrenia is disorganized schizophrenia. I believe this one is one that has been redefined in the latest DSM. but I don't have the latest DSM information to be able to tell you all about it. So let's just talk about it as if it never changed. Okay. Disorganized schizophrenics exhibit disturbed and incoherent language, inappropriate displays of emotion, disruptions to their motor activity, and other things, including hallucinations and delusions. Basically, this is kind of the last bit of catch-all that we have in the DSM for people who are experiencing these kinds of symptoms, but aren't enough that they are paranoid and not enough that it's something else. It's just kind of, we don't know. And that's kind of where psychology is with regard to that. Now, when we talk about schizophrenia and we talk about people recovering from schizophrenia, we have to kind of think about it in terms of cancer. The cancer is still there. It's just a matter of time before it rears its ugly head again. And that's what we call remission. Sometimes the symptoms will disappear completely and be gone, or not be severe enough to earn the diagnosis of schizophrenia. But it's going to come back for the most part. Okay. They usually always return. Like I said earlier, that student that had a brother who was schizophrenic, he would disappear for a couple of months and then come back. Everything was fine. He would be normal again. And then suddenly one night he would change and off he would go. Again, it comes down to the fact that he is not experiencing things normally. And so therefore, he's having these symptoms happen again and again and again. Undifferentiated schizophrenia is where a person has symptoms that meet the general diagnostic criteria for schizophrenia, but don't conform to any of the three types. Again, deterioration of daily functioning, hallucinations and delusions, inappropriate emotions, thought disorder. All of these things kind of are there, but there's not enough of anything there to be described as being there. It's kind of another one of those catch-all things. Causes. For the most part, we find them to be genetic, but we don't know why. But we do know that people who have it run in their family tend to suffer from it in larger proportions than people who don't. Some people believe that there is a biological element to it. For example, something structured incorrectly or differently in a person's brain, or possibly an imbalance in brain chemistry, but we don't know. There are still others that believe that there is an environmental factor, like they are exposed to some kind of electromagnetic radiation, or they're experiencing some kind of reaction to a chemical that they're particularly sensitive to. We ultimately don't know. And that's one of the major problems that we have with defining schizophrenia itself. The next group of disorders that we're going to talk about are mood disorders, and these are probably the most common disorders out there. I mean, completely and utterly common. They are the most common, okay? And they are going to be things like depression, mania, and bipolar disorder, okay? We all get depressed. We all have bouts of sadness from time to time. But a clinical depression is a serious mood disorder that has little in common with a blue mood that people get. People with these types of disorders have intense moods that last a long time. Famous people who have suffered from mood disorders include actress Patty Duke. She was famous in like the 50s and 60s. You've probably never heard of her. Media mogul Ted Turner. He was really famous in the 1980s and 90s. Probably never heard of him. But there's lots of people who have mood disorders out there. I know. I was like, most people don't talk about the disorders that they are suffering from until something massive happens and they have to talk about it. Demi Lovato, for example, nobody knew she was struggling as much as she was until she tried to kill herself with a drug overdose. And now we kind of know, oh my God, she has a little bit of depression. So, okay, let's say Demi Lovato. There's one. I just don't want to say anything and be like, oh, no, she doesn't have that. She's got something else. Because again, I'm not her doctor, nor should I be. So I don't know anybody for sure. and who cares? Let's just move on. So the first one we've kind of already talked a little bit about when we talked about sleep patterns. We talked about seasonal affective disorder. Basically, it is a type of depression that is seasonal, and seasonal because people suffer from it during a particular time of the year. Specifically, when there is less daylight available. When there's less daylight available, there's more melatonin being produced by your pineal gland, and that can cause all kinds of disruptions. But typically, this is only in the far northern reaches of the world. Okay, you're not going to have seasonal affective disorder this far south. Okay, so Southern California, no seasonal affective disorder. Stockholm, Sweden, seasonal affective disorder. Anchorage, Alaska, seasonal affective disorder. Fairbanks, oh boy, yeah. When you don't see the sun for a couple of months in the year, you get a little sad, and that can cause you this seasonal affective disorder. Common treatments for seasonal affective is temporary sleep deprivation, which kind of helps to reset your circadian rhythm, or exposing a sufferer to artificial light for a couple of hours a day. Kind of makes you feel like you're in daylight, type of a thing. Another very, very serious part of mood disorders is suicide. Every year, more than 32,000 Americans end their own lives. One suicide occurs every 16 minutes in the United States. Likely candidates for suicide are people who are suffering from terminal illness, people who feel lonely or disconnected, and people suffering from intense emotional pain. Women attempt suicide more often than men, but men are more likely to succeed. It's actually the second leading cause of death among college students. Some people commit suicide in order to permanently banish feelings that they find unacceptable, especially sexual feelings, or to punish loved ones who they feel should have perceived and attended to their needs. 70% of those who threaten suicide kill themselves within 3 months of making the threat. This is something that is very, very important that everybody should kind of think about and know. For example, a few years ago, I had a student who volunteered on a suicide hotline. And I remember one day she came to class and she's like, she came to me and she was like, I saved a person's life yesterday. And I didn't know that she was, a person who volunteered on a suicide hotline. I said, what are you talking about? How did you save somebody's life? And she's like, well, they called up and they were going to kill themselves, but I talked them out of it. I was able to convince them that there was a reason to be here tomorrow. And I was like, holy crap, that is absolutely incredible. Somebody she didn't know, somebody she had no interactions with, she was able to convince not to kill themselves. If you are suffering, or if you know someone who is, please find help. The one thing that I will always say to you is tomorrow needs you. You don't know it yet, but tomorrow needs you to be there. And no matter what the hurt or emotional pain or whatever is going on, no matter what, it can be dealt with. You're not the first person to deal with it, and you won't be the last. And there are people out there who are willing to help. Always remember that. It doesn't matter who you go to somebody. One of the things that has happened because of this pandemic is that people are feeling more disconnected and lonely than they have ever experienced before in their lives. And suicide rates are up. It has been a very difficult year for a lot of people. But again, I'm here to tell you, tomorrow needs you. So make sure that you're there for it. One example of a person who committed suicide is Kurt Cobain. In the early 90s, he was the lead singer of the band Nirvana. Now, having grown up in the early 90s, I can tell you that Nirvana was the early 90s. I mean, there's no other group that I could think of that would be a better example of what the early 90s was like. Um, he was at the top of the charts. He had best-selling albums. He was raking in, lots of money as an artist, doing what he truly enjoyed doing. And he ended up putting a shotgun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. So people who have everything that you possibly could want or wish or dream for sometimes kill themselves as well. He left behind a suicide note, and in one of the sentences that he wrote, he said, "I'm too much of an erratic, moody baby. I don't have the passion anymore, and so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away." And that's not true. You don't burn out. You keep going. You keep pushing. You don't fade away. You keep going. One of the things that I credit his wife, Courtney Love, at the time, there was a lot of worry and concern that there were going to be a lot of copycats who were going to, kill themselves like Kurt did, because he had a really big impact on people's lives in the early 90s. I mean, I grew up in Seattle, which was the center of grunge in the 90s. I mean, Nirvana was a Seattle band. And there were a lot of people who hung on everything that he said. And when he killed himself, again, the people were like, are we going to see a lot of copycats? Well, when they had a memorial for him at this big area in downtown Seattle called the Seattle Center, she read his suicide note to the crowd and basically gave her commentary on top of it as she was crying, because he had left behind not only her but their very young child that they had just had. And she basically said, "Yeah, too much of an erratic, moody baby. It was too bad nobody could help you. Wait, there was a lot of people out there to help you." And basically was not complimentary of his suicide. I give her that credit. Now, there are people who suggest that she actually killed him, but I don't know. I was not there. I just remember where I was when the news came that he killed himself. I was at the state geography bee because I'm cool like that. Yeah. I remember hearing it on the news and thinking to myself, wow, I know about this before everybody at school. Because, nobody had cell phones because they weren't a thing. I mean, they were, but they were very expensive and you weren't going to give one to a kid. So I knew before everybody at school did, and I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. Anyway. Major depression is a severe form of depression that interferes with functioning and concentration. Symptoms can include things like a lack of appetite. You're just not hungry. You just can't sleep. The effects of a major depressive episode are feelings of hopelessness, suicidal impulses, feelings of worthlessness, and a major depression is something that is going to continue. It's not just something that, oh, it's there and then it's gone. That's just you're having a bad day. You're sad for a little while. Major depression is it sticks around, and there you start believing that there is no help for it ever going away. Now, another mood disorder is one that you've probably heard of. You probably even used it as a little, you're so bipolar. Well, bipolar is actually really, really serious. Okay. In bipolar disorder, a sufferer will alternate between absolute, utter despair, a major depression, and then bursts of energy, which we call mania. So in the manic phase, you're just really, really happy. Everything is going great. Everything is moving really, really fast. Your brain is just going one right after the other. People going through manic episodes will sometimes feel like they're super productive. But actually what they are is really, really disorganized. And so they start a bunch of projects. And then as soon as the depressive phase kicks in, they look around at all the projects that they started and that they are definitely not going to finish, and they begin to feel really depressed. And implodes their manic phase into a major depression. Some people have theorized that the two phases actually reinforce one another, um, that the manic episode serves as an attempt to ward off the depressing feelings of the depressive phase, and that the depressive phase happens because the manic phase starts to slow down a little bit and you realize how overwhelmed you are with what you've done. Um, Manic depressive is what it used to be called. Now it's called bipolar. Bipolar is generally controlled with strong mood stabilizers, things like Prozac or lithium, lithium salts, or well, I think it's called Wellbutrin. There's a whole bunch of different antidepressants that are out there. Some people don't like their antidepressants, and we'll talk about that when we start talking about therapy next week, and how people get help. But basically, they don't like taking their meds, and so they would rather be bipolar and swing between the highs and the lows than to be in kind of the middle, not feeling anything. But yeah. All right. So personality disorders we're going to be talking about are basically things that have a severe change in a person's personality. And it also can be defined as a personality malfunction, is where your personality is so personality that it breaks you. We'll talk about each one of these. These have been kind of organized in the DSM along similar traits. So there's kind of a set. There's, I think, 4 different sets of 3. I don't have them organized in that way because it wasn't organized that way in DSM-4, and I haven't changed this yet because I've been busy. Sorry. Okay? Cut me some freaking slack, all right? Hold on here. God dang it. Stupid microphone. Turn the wrong way. There we go. All right. All right. So the first one is paranoid personality disorder. In paranoid personality disorder, you have an inappropriate suspiciousness of others. People who suffer from paranoid personality disorder tend to be hypersensitive to any possible threat or trick. They refuse to accept blame or criticism, even when it is well deserved. They are guarded and secretive, devious and scheming, argumentative, and sometimes see themselves as rational and objective. So basically, they are pretty convinced that the world is out to get them in some way, shape, or form. An example of this was a construction worker who got into disputes with his coworkers because he was afraid that they are going to try to deliberately let his scaffolding slip to kill or injure him. He believed that there were hostile intentions from his coworkers, even though his coworkers had no, I'm not trying to, why would I try to kill you? I don't care. Why would I do that? There was even a person who believed that his psychologist was taking his side against him in his therapy sessions because he was trying to kind of get at what he was talking about. So paranoid personality disorder people typically search for hidden meanings in everything. They are quick to challenge the loyalty of their friends and loved ones because obviously they're out to get them just like everybody else is. It can make it very difficult to be around those people. I'm not going to lie. Another personality disorder is antisocial personality disorder. These are people who exhibit the disorder, people who exhibit this disorder lie, steal, cheat. Let me back up. And show little to no responsibility, although they seem intelligent and charming at first acquaintance. They are basically con men who exemplify this idea of antisocial personality disorder. They compulsively cheat their business partners because they know their weak points. Antisocial personalities rarely show the slightest trace of anxiety or guilt about their behaviors, and indeed are likely to blame society or the victims themselves for their own antisocial actions that they commit. Okay, so yes, I stole from you, but That's your fault that you didn't catch me. God, what's wrong with you? That's the idea of an antisocial person. Antisocial personalities are responsible for a good deal of crime and violence in our society. Approximately 3% of American men and less than 1% of American women suffer from antisocial personality disorder, and yet they are disproportionately large in our prison system. Okay. They tend to be pretty careless with money. They're free spending. They don't think about the consequences of their actions. They tend to be very aggressive and much more concerned with their own needs than the needs of others. Another great example of a person who may have suffered from antisocial personality disorder is Ted Bundy, the serial killer. He had absolutely no remorse for killing people, and he actually blamed his victims. Well, she shouldn't have gone with me. I mean, how stupid was that? Duh. The next personality disorder is borderline personality disorder, and it is characterized by mood instability and poor self-image. People with this disorder tend to act impulsively and often in self-destructive ways. They feel uncomfortable being alone. They often manipulate self-destructive impulses in an effort to control or solidify their personal relationships. Such self-destructive behaviors can include promiscuity, drug and alcohol abuse, and threats of suicide. So basically, people with borderline personality disorder have these mood swings where they will be, kind of they'll seem like they're helpless. And, oh, I just need so much help. And then if you don't give them the help that they want, they become angry at you, and then they start blaming you for the lack of help that you aren't giving to them. Um, there is an idea out there that women suffer from borderline personality disorder more than men do, and that it runs in the family. It's often accompanied by depressive or bipolar disorders, which has led some psychologists to question whether borderline personality is considered a separate and distinguishable category of personality disorder. But we did keep it. Borderline people tend towards self-injury and suicidal threats, and actions are not uncommon. Again, they're quick to anger when their expectations aren't met. And if you don't give them the attention that they want, they will find a way of getting it from you. Histrionic personality disorder is a person who is characterized by excessive patterns of emotionality and attention seeking, including an excessive need for approval and need for approval and inappropriate seductiveness. Usually beginning in early adulthood, these individuals are lively, dramatic, enthusiastic, flirtatious, and they may be inappropriately sexually provocative, express strong emotions with an impressionistic style, and be easily influenced by others. Associated features that may include things like egocentrism, so self-centeredness, self-indulgence, continuous longing for appreciation, and persistent manipulative behavior to achieve their own needs. People with histrionic personality disorder need attention. They need it in the worst possible way. They need your approval, and if you're not giving them all the approval that they want, they will keep going until you give them that approval. Okay. They might dress provocatively or exaggerate illnesses to gain that attention. They will have no compunction about, having a boob fall out. Oh, whoopsies. I didn't know. Do you like it? And then they want you to give them attention. And if you don't give it to them, they will go further. They will exaggerate their friendships, believing that they have these wonderful relationships with everybody. But in fact, they're just kind of annoying people that nobody wants to be around. Okay. They often fail to see their own personal situation realistically, tending to dramatize and exaggerate their difficulties. They may go through frequent job changes as they become easily bored and have trouble dealing with frustration. Because they tend to crave novelty and excitement, they may place themselves in risky situations. And all of these factors lead to increased risk for developing depression. Because if they don't get the attention that they so crave, they just, well, obviously I'm a terrible, horrible person that can't be loved. Narcissistic personality disorder is one where it is characterized by a grandiose sense of self. Basically, they are so self-centered that they can't see beyond their own mirror, which is why it's called narcissistic personality disorder, because it comes from an ancient Greek fable about Narcissus, who was so enamored with his own reflection that he forgot to eat and so starved to death. They exaggerate their own achievements. Excuse me. They believe that they are extraordinary. They need constant attention and admiration. They display a sense of entitlement and tend to exploit others. They are given to envy and arrogance and lack the ability to really care for anybody else. So they have this unreal sense of just grandiose self-centeredness. Okay. The best example that I could give, and they just broke up. This is something that when they got together a couple of years ago, I changed the picture because, oh my God, they are the poster children for narcissistic personality disorder. Kanye believes that he is the best at literally everything. I'm not saying he's not talented, but no, he's not. Okay. He is not Jesus, but he believes himself to be very closely related. Kim has this sense that she's really, really important to the world. Nope, she is not. She got famous for, putting out a sex tape and having a big ass. That's basically it. So the two of them combined was this narcissism ball for quite a long time. Apparently, Kim woke up one day and went, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Maybe it was when he was running for president. Maybe. Probably not. Narcissistic personality disorder sufferers tend to be very choosy about picking their friends, since they believe that they are so wildly important and amazing that they can't just give anybody their friendship. They have to be very, very picky about it. They're generally uninterested in the feelings of others and may take advantage of them. This is sounding so familiar. Takes advantage of other people, grandiose sense of self, needs love and attention at all times. This is from an old TV show from the 90s. You won't get this. An example of this is there was a PhD student who was working on his dissertation. He bragged that his dissertation was going to revolutionize the field and make him famous, but he hadn't written most of it. He blamed his academic advisor for his lack of progress, called his fellow students drones, stated that everyone was jealous of his brilliance, had frequent brief relationships with women, but few lasting friendships. Again, this is sounding so familiar. God, who could I be thinking of? I bet you're all yelling it in the chat, but I can't see the chat, so we'll just see. We'll see if you got it. I bet you did. The next personality disorder is called schizoid. These people lack the ability or desire to form social relationships and have no warm or tender feelings for others at all. Okay, they are loners, and loner doesn't really express how much of a loner these loners are. They are perceived to be cold and distant and unfeeling to others. They often appear vague, absent-minded, indecisive, in a fog. Because their withdrawal from society is so complete, people with schizoid personality disorder seldom marry and may have trouble holding jobs that require them to work with or relate to others. The best example that I could find, and I've never seen the movie itself, but it's not Smeagol, it's the other one. What's the other? Anybody here? No, nobody. Nobody's a fan of Lord of the Rings. Wow. Again, you're probably screaming it in the comments, and I can't see it. It's not Smeagol. What's the other one? God dang it. Cody?
Dobby?
No. Dobby is the house elf from Harry Potter. Oh my God, somebody is losing their mind right now. I mean, besides me. I don't remember. That guy, you know. If you know, you know. And if you know, then I don't need to say it. Schizoid personality disorder sufferers tend to seek jobs that require little social contact. They really don't want to be around other people. Um, They have difficulty establishing personal relationships or expressing their feelings in any kind of meaningful way and may remain passive in the face of unfavorable situations. Their communications with other people is often indifferent and concise because of their lack of meaningful communication with others. Gollum. That's yes, 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 yes. That one. Um, Such reflections are important for a person's self-awareness. You know, you have to have other people to kind of explain to you where you're at. And so people who don't want to be around other people because they just dislike them so severely tend to have kind of a distorted sense of themselves. Uh, Schizotypical is the next disorder, personality disorder. In this one, it is a need for social isolation and odd behavior and thinking. Some people who have schizotypical or schizotypal disorder, some people believe that it is a really mild form of schizophrenia. Um, Typically poor rapport with others and a tendency to be socially withdrawn, suspiciousness, paranoid ideas. It's basically, think of it like schizophrenia light. Okay. Far less filling, less calorie, schizophrenia light, a schizotypal or schizotypical personality disorder. The next is avoidant. In avoidant personality disorder, the person is timid, anxious, and fearful of rejection. This is a person who is socially inept and probably avoids social interaction, like the schizoid personality disorder. But the difference is, in avoidant, they want those relationships with other people. Schizoid doesn't want those people around. Stay the hell away from me. Avoidant wants there to be that relationship so badly. Why can't you just why am I such a horrible person that people don't want to be around? Well, that's not the case. You're just kind of socially inept. And I'm sure you've met somebody like that in the past, where they just are kind of weird and you don't want to be around them because they're so weird, but they want to be around you. And so you just kind of like, I guess I'll be around you. Yeah, that would be avoidant personality disorder. And the last personality disorder is dependent personality disorder. People with this personality disorder are unable to make decisions on their own or do things independently. They rely on their parents, a spouse, friends, or others to make major choices in their lives and are usually extremely unhappy with being alone. Their underlying fear seems to be that they will be rejected or abandoned by the important people in their lives. And that can lead them to I don't want to say do bad things, but it can lead to basically depression. Um, yeah, I actually am pretty sure, and I'm not diagnosing because that would be wrong. Don't diagnose your friends. But I am really positive that an ex of mine had dependent personality disorder because she could not make a decision about literally anything. Going out to dinner, oh my God, was nearly impossible with her because she didn't know what she wanted to have for dinner. What are you going to have? I'm going to have what I'm going to order. Order that too if you want that. No, I don't want to do that. I'll order something different. And then the food would come, and like 2 bites in, she's looking at mine going, that looks really good. Yeah, it is. You should have ordered it because that's what I'm eating right now. There was actually one time we were in, what was it, Las Vegas, I think, and we went out to dinner in Vegas, and she ordered like buffalo wings at a fancy restaurant. Like, who does that? And I don't remember what I ordered, but I was enjoying it until she decided that she really didn't want those buffalo wings. Could I have what you're having? So we got to trade. I'm not bitter about it. Anyway, that is kind of the basics of abnormal psychology disorders. Again, we will talk more about this on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, or maybe just Wednesday. I don't know. I have to kind of figure it out. But then on Monday of next week, or maybe Thursday, probably Monday, we'll start talking about how to treat these kinds of mental disorders. Then we will have our review session on Wednesday of next week. And then Thursday of next week, we have our Unit 11 exam. And then we move on to our final unit. So crazy. Seniors, we are almost there. Can you believe it? Again, you're probably screaming in the comments, yes, I can believe it. When will this nightmare be over? Soon enough. Soon enough. Okay. Office hours today are from 1 to 2 o'clock. If you're going to be coming to office hours, please let me know. Otherwise, I will probably be taking a nap because I am exhausted. But I also have work I've got to do for my classes because my classes are over in like 3 weeks. I'm done in 3 weeks. Oh, thank God. Anyway, any questions that arise, please let me know. Send me an email. I'm going to get out of the thing, and then we'll see if there's any questions that came up during the whole thing. So give me a second here. Come on. Here we go. Wow. There was nothing in the chat window. I don't feel so bad anymore.
You're gonna punt that thing at the end of the day.
Oh, I do almost every day. Okay, so to quickly, go over paranoid personality. Again, you basically just are under the belief that the world is out to get you. Okay, the world is coming to get you, and everyone can't be trusted, and it makes it rather